Hey all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani.
And I'm Sam.
And today we have a unique episode. Normally I have everything prepared, and this time I just sort of have things I want to talk about, and we're going to see where that gets us.
Okay.
Okay.
I wish you all luck with us in this one.
This is going to be an interesting one, guys. Sorry. I said it before, in capital murder case prosecution, and that is that the state is burdened with the task of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that a person has committed the crime they are accused of. Bias shouldn't be a part of the case, but what if the state saw just another black man and decided he was guilty? The defense team so inept that he was forced to defend himself. He's used to that, right? He's an MMA fighter, so we know he's strong enough, right? Right? But what if we got it wrong? Should he still be condemned to die? What if reasonable doubt is there, but overshadowed by those large booming voices in court saying he's a strong black man, he's a fighter, so he must have done it. He killed a white woman. Would you notice the doubt, or would the lynch mob mentality kicked in? Then, if he begged you to kill him because he didn't think he could handle life in a box, would you acquiesce? While I can't say for certain if Cedric Marks is guilty or innocent, I can say that doubt should be enough to prevent the death sentence. What we do know is he knowingly disposed of two people after their death, but what came before is circumstantial. Circumstantial cases teeter on never fully proving anything, but the hope by the prosecution is that there's enough information to make a jury believe the defense wants the opposite. Without concrete evidence, a guilty verdict cannot be handed down. Now here's a quick review on Cedric Marks' case. Cedric Marks is sentenced to death after being found guilty of killing two people, Michael Swearingen and Jenna Scott, on January 3rd, 2019. Jenna was an ex-girlfriend of Cedric, and the two had a tumultuous relationship at best. It is court documented. At the time of the event, Cedric was living in a different state and had returned to Texas to take part in a title event. Before coming down to Texas, he was informed of charges pending that needed to be addressed. So here's the problem I have with Cedric Marks' guilty verdict. And we're going to get into all the things that I found that just seem a tidbit odd. So number one, the injuries of the victims. No broken bones on Michael, and two broken ribs on the right side of Jenna. So I have their autopsy reports. Because Cedric has sent me a ton of information, so if you hear shuffling papers, apologies, but I'm going to read this and then I'm going to hand it to Sam, who has never seen this information before. She gets it right now. So for Michael Swearingen, who is a bigger gentleman, he's not a small guy. So evidence of strangulation, a confluent conjunctival petechial hemorrhages, periorbital petechial hemorrhages, biting of the lower lip, mottled discoloration of the neck and upper chest, hemorrhage of the anterior strap muscles, hemorrhage of the thyroid, hemorrhage of the posterior strap muscles, hands with contusions and abrasions, A, right posterior hand with contusion and linear abrasion, and B, left posterior hand with parallel linear abrasions. And part 3, other injuries, right eyelid with laceration, abrasion of the inferior chin, hemorrhage of the right torso and back, abrasions of the left forearm, contusion of the right lower leg, and abrasions of the left lower leg. Cause of death, asphyxiation due to strangulation. Manner of death is homicide.
Okay.
So this is a big guy. The second autopsy is that of Jenna Scott. Findings. Evidence of injury. Face and neck with circumferential black adhesive residue. So she was tied up.
Taped her.
B, back with contusions. C, rib fractures with hemorrhage. And she ended up with 2 rib fractures. D, wrist with contusions and other injuries. E, ankle with circumferential contusions and abrasions. Part 2, remote cholecystectomy. That doesn't really count. 3, renal cortical scars. And 4, heart with functional patent foramen. I can never say that. Foramen ovale.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got it. I can say it. I've said it before. Cause of death, homicidal violence. Manner of death, homicide. So you can see all those to look for yourself. He did write on it, but that doesn't matter. So it's just saying she has a natural hole in her heart. And the part that struck me is that the fact that Cedric is an MMA fighter and we have all these injuries, but none of them are huge. There's no, other than the 2 fractures, there's no breaks on Michael. There's no, like, nothing that to me points to the fact of somebody who's enraged, who's mad. Like, I can't imagine a world where if he's going to murder these people, originally Jenna, because he's so upset and they do have a tumultuous relationship and they have had all these issues, how did he manage to pull back enough that he only broke 2 bones?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, yes, I agree that that's my initial thought is like he would destroy these people.
Yes.
But you say this other guy is big.
Yeah. I forgot to write down how big. I have asked, and I want to say he's somewhere between 5'10", 6 something, and he's either 280, 300 something pounds.
So he definitely like was strangled
Hmm.
intensely.
Yeah.
Which would take a lot of effort and force.
Hmm.
And then there's, from my understanding of fighters, they're in their training, they're trained to also know when and how to control themselves.
Correct.
I guess if you are enraged, though, maybe it's different.
So, in 2004, Cedric was attacked in a pool, and he got hit by a gentleman, and he hit him back 3 times, ending the fight. In 3 punches, he broke his jaw, cheekbone, eye socket, nose, and burst his eyeball. All of the damage was on the left side of his face. So we'll get to the fact that he says left side, because
Right.
he is a known southpaw, but we're going to talk about that in just a second. He also has like 2 other fights where he kind of got into trouble. One, he found one of his girlfriends that was cheating on him, and he broke the guy's sternum.
Oh.
And then another fight, and he landed 1 punch that broke a jaw, and it required reconstructive surgery. So my problem with this is these are like court documented cases that he has, that he inflicted this damage because, so he got cleared of the pool and the other cases, but they did go, like the police saw it. It's documented that this happened. So in those cases, he inflicted all of this damage, but here he didn't.
I think I need to know the motive.
Of
like, of why are they saying he did this?
So, Jenna and Cedric were in a relationship on and off, and there's known violence within the relationship, on her side, domestic violence to him. And they had put restraining orders on each other, and they had been in and out of court repeatedly. And he had been, he'd been dealt with it like for a long time. And so this last time that I believe he was living in Michigan at the time, and he came down to Texas for this title event. And while he was headed down, he found out that there was another like case pending, and potentially he would have to like go to jail, and deal with it. And then, and I think it was either another domestic violence or something to do along with those lines. So that's kind of why they think that he just like snapped, because he was done with all of, like, she kept, even though they were no longer together, right? She keeps bringing him back, and she keeps saying all these things, and she keeps tarnishing his name, and she keeps, putting him in jail and saying that he's doing all these things. And so the theory is that, he had had enough. And how do you get rid of all these court cases? You get rid of Jenna.
Yeah, so that to me then like definitely doesn't fit how these people died.
See?
Because to
I have a
me,
problem with that.
yeah, to me, if you've got someone who is a known MMA fighter,
Mhm.
and you know you need to take this problem out because it just won't go away, you're not going to do it with your hands. Like, I don't think that you would do it with your hands. If you're in the slightest bit smart,
Hmm.
and have a little bit of time to think about it,
Hmm.
you're going to premeditate much cleaner,
Yeah.
cleaner option that doesn't just instantly implicate you.
Hmm. And so how these two, so there's footage of somebody coming to the door and ringing a doorbell, and supposedly Maya, and Maya's the not quite co-defendant, but kind of. She's the other person in this. Maya is, at the time, Cedric's girlfriend, and she um, is seen on footage, and she's driving around the neighborhood without anybody else in the car. It's just her. She's
Hmm.
driving around, and there's text messages. Cedric's like, "Where are you?" Like, so they're not together. GPS shows they're not together. She's riding around the neighborhood of her house, of Jenna's house,
Mm.
and then there's some very bad footage of somebody ringing a doorbell. They get like a thumb on the ring cam or something like that, and they try to say that it's his thumb. And I was like, it's a thumb and it's a black and white image. I'm not sure how you can get anything out of that other than there was a finger. Like, are you even sure it was a thumb?
That's what they're trying to use?
Trust me, there's a lot of craziness to this case. And we're just doing reasonable doubt. We're not doing the whole case today. But
Right.
this is the part that has been bothering me the most when I look into his case. And I'm like, okay, maybe he did it. But there's all these pieces that say it's very unlikely that he did it. And this speaks volume. Okay, so let's talk about really quick, because the fractures are on the which side of the body? What did I just
They're
say?
all on the
They're on the right.
right eyelid laceration.
No, go to Jenna. It just says the two broken ribs, doesn't it? It doesn't say what time or what
Rib.
side.
It just says rib fractures.
Okay, so I do believe that it was on the right side of her body, which means it's likely a left-handed opponent. However, and that was a big thing in the case as well, is that he's a southpaw. So the fact that everything's inflicted on the right side matches up with somebody who's a southpaw, which is true. But I went through so many of Cedric's fights and I watched them. For example, Eddie Ellis versus him, or Chappelle versus him, and Callahan versus him. In every single one of these fights, while he is a southpaw, he never does anything but a straight punch, I guess is the best word that I can say for that. He doesn't do jabs. He doesn't do uppercuts. He doesn't do anything with the left hand but a straight punch. Everything else, his powerhouse is the right side. And the reason that he posits for that, and I'll show you pictures later, is that when he was younger, he got shot in the left hand and it hit a knuckle, and it made it so that his left hand was deformed. So while it's his powerhouse, if he throws like an uppercut, or he does like it where he has to round out his hand, he's more likely to re-break that knuckle and do more damage to himself. So in any of his fights, you can look all of his his MMA fights up. I have never seen him throw anything but a straight punch, which doesn't make sense if we're breaking the ribs. You'd have to turn your hand and it would have to be that rounded punch.
Right.
Sorry, I don't know the name of punches. I am not a fighter.
A
He,
roundhouse.
no,
No, I don't.
that's
I
a kick. That's a kick. I do know that. He told me the name of it, and I thought I wrote it down. But again, I told you I didn't write a whole lot down on this part that we're talking about. So apologies for not remembering the name of the punch. But in order to break those ribs, it couldn't have been the type of punch that he doesn't throw. He's never thrown it. So why, if he doesn't throw it in a professional fight, would he suddenly start doing it here, knowing that he's going to injure himself? But then when they arrest him, he's not injured.
Oh, I mean, that's huge too.
So that brings me to point 2. The lack of marks on Cedric at arrest. So the murders happened on January 3rd. Cedric was arrested on the 8th of January, and they photographed like chest, arms, hands, back. There's not a mark on him.
That doesn't make any sense.
Would you like to know how I know? He sent me all of the photos.
Oh, okay. Let's look at these. The guy who was killed
Yes.
his BMI was 36.
Yeah. Not a.
Oh,
So
his hands are cleaner than mine are.
yeah. So those are his hands. These are the inside of his hands. I'm going to show you all of the. I'll hand this over to you. But he literally, there's not a single mark on his body
There's not a
between
scratch.
between two victims. You're saying that he managed to subdue two of them and hit a guy that has a BMI of 36, and there is not a single mark on his body.
And you say that like the ring camera shows like a finger, so it's not like he had gloves on, unless he brought gloves and put them on once he gets in there. But
Right.
that's stupid.
Yeah.
So it's not like they have evidence that shows he wasn't protecting his hands if it was him.
Correct.
Like,
And there's nothing.
there's nothing.
There's literally not even. He makes a joke. He says on one of the photos, he's like, "Sorry, there's a pimple on my shoulder. You get to see that." That's literally the only mark on his body. Like, and he's like, "How can you?" There's nothing. She's looking at all of the photos right now.
Yeah,
There's
so there's
literally zero scratches, zero bruises, zero anything. And if you see that left hand right there, you see how his knuckles deformed on the first finger?
yeah.
That's what he's talking about, why he can't throw a punch. And this will be the first episode that we'll upload 10,000 photos for, so everybody else can see these photos too.
And like it's also like important to note like he doesn't have like his fingers are clean and well taken care of, but they're not like neatly manicured. It's not like he went in and cleaned his hands up or anything like that. Like his nails are decently long. They like haven't clipped them in some time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he went in and like cleaned up his hands after this either. Doesn't look like he like freshly tried to make himself look clean. He's got like a normal person who hasn't cut their nails in a few weeks and yeah, he's got literally nothing. Like there's not a mark on his chest, which is where if I were getting attacked would be like where I'd be reaching for his neck.
Reaching for neck,
like
face, anything. And there's no marks on him. And the last photos are just him at he taught self-defense for women. So the other thing is when Maya was later arrested and like talked to about this crime, because again, she's the co-defendant and she later admits to taking part in some of this, but not all of it. And she has a good story about it. They never photographed her. She had a long sleeve shirt on the whole time and they didn't take pictures of anything. So we don't know if she has marks all over her body. We don't know if she was scratched up or bruised or anything like that.
Oh, how come, like,
again, this is why I said in my opening, are we here to lynch a black man? Because that's what it feels like at this point.
I mean, I always go into these like cases in general with that theory. I would be a very bad juror for someone who's trying to prosecute someone.
Because it feels like it? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to actually prove it. For me, I'm not like a reasonable doubt type of person. I'm like, no, give me proof.
Yeah. Well, they did a good job of talking through the points without explaining all the things that should have been excluded, it feels like. And then on to number 3, because I won't harp on, because you guys can't see the pictures right now, but I will, again, upload them. So after Cedric was arrested, Jenna's phone, one of the victims, was turned on.
Oh.
So I know that seems like an odd thing to bring into the picture, but at the time, Maya's not arrested. Cedric says that she believes that he believes that she got somebody to help her, because it couldn't have just been Maya. She's a very little woman. But the phone turns on after he's arrested. So who the fuck had her phone?
Yeah.
It wasn't the police. But it showed that it was located in Oglesby, Texas, and they had the latitude and longitude of it, and that it was turned on Saturday, 1/12/2019.
Which was
days after he was arrested.
Days after he was arrested.
So there's that. I'm telling you, he sent me so many things, and these are just the things I'm pulling out from all of the paperwork that he
So
gave me.
also to like step back and just look at this now with an umbrella, like did you highlight these or did he?
He did, but I read the whole
I
thing.
know, but that's sort of what I want to say. Someone who's innocent, I like feel like you're not going to go through police reports and highlight things that just are obviously not making sense.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have all the time, I've never been in prison, so maybe you've got all the time in the world and you're like, how do I create my alibi from what they've put in these reports? But it's just so well studied and like he's thought about everything in here and he's really knows what to send you.
hmm Well, he
Um,
sent me a lot more. Like, he sent me, I have a whole, I feel like a book that I could start at this point, and I'm picking out some of the pieces that are kind of the most obvious. Yes, he highlights, he talks about it. If I have any questions, then I can talk about it. Being on the medical side, the highlighting of the injuries wouldn't have done anything for me for the autopsy report. I understand what those say. Um, but he also highlights things so that he can keep a list of people's names um, on there. So it's like what detective's doing this, what one's doing this, what names are being involved, um, so that it's a quicker reference as well. And when it comes to time, he's on death row. He's isolated. He doesn't get to do anything but, his rec time and calls when he's allowed. So he's got a lot of time.
yeah, I mean,
And he suffers from insomnia. So
uh,
he's got a lot of
what a
time.
nightmare.
A lot of time. hmm
What a nightmare that'd be. It so on this route, my brain then goes to as well, like they say that this phone was turned on and what he has highlighted here is explains that it sort of came on basically on like a intersection of a highway.
hmm
It was near an old house that no one was living in, but the police seemed to think that it was just turned on while someone was driving. But who is there any indication that someone would be driving that road, like a girlfriend of his? Like, is it a route that she would normally take, or
That I don't know. And I don't know if at this time Maya's back in Michigan.
okay,
Um, but she had originally lived in Texas and had an ex-boyfriend who Cedric thinks is the one that
right?
she contacted to help with all this stuff. And so would it be like, did he have it in his car? If it was dropped during like a struggle or a body move, or
Right.
like why do they have it?
Why would you take the phone too?
Well, it was probably on her person. So
Okay.
did it fall out when they were like taping her up, strangling her? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because a lot of us carry it in a pocket.
Yeah.
So and the premise or the ruse to get them outside supposedly was that Maya had lost a dog, and so they were going to help find it. And so you'd probably have your phone on you at that point.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah. And then they brought in cadaver dogs, and the dogs didn't hit where they said that they were killed. So again, in the case, they talk about a woman named Rebecca, who is Cedric's friend. She's out of town at this point. I think she might be deployed, but has okayed Cedric to spend the night at her house while he's doing the title and the court stuff because they were good, like longtime friends, and he had trained her at one point. And so they had originally said that this had happened at her house, and there was a couple different locations that they said that these people were murdered. One was at an abandoned house, which makes me think, the phone.
Right.
And one was Rebecca's house. And so they have one, and it says that they brought in a dog, and that they gave it like a towel, and it did hit on 3 different areas, but it was supposedly not the house that they were killed in. And I'm like, why are they bringing dogs in? And
Dogs are a Hail Mary.
yes and no. Yes and no. And then, but they did hit on Michael Swearingen's mother also relayed that a portable dog crate was in the garage of this house that they were at some point. And she mentioned it was unusual for it to be placed in the garage because Michael always transported his dog everywhere. And she believed the crate was removed and placed there. And so they had the dogs go there and hit on it. And they did that. And DNA was extracted. Oh, Lord, I have to get to all my papers. I'm trying to hand you all of the papers all at the same time. So they did DNA evidence and let me grab the DNA. So the dog crate is one of the things that they did DNA evidence on. And there is a partial mix. And in that partial mix, Cedric Marks is excluded. In all of the DNA evidence that they have collected from where they think that these people were killed,
He never shows up.
Cedric is excluded from every single piece of it. And
See,
I want to give you my DNA evidence.
It's things like that that make me...
That bother me.
It definitely bothers me.
So it bothers me that, again, we talk about the Ring camera. We see a thumb in. Nothing's covered. And then, there are no marks on his body. And now no DNA evidence is anywhere to be found of Cedric's. But there is an unknown male DNA.
Yeah. It just feels
suspicious.
The idea that they were bringing cadaver dogs into is it's not scientific. I don't care. I love dogs. I love them. They are the most incredible creatures on this planet, quite frankly, but they don't deserve to be in court cases.
Yeah.
It's just proven. It's not a scientific practice. Yeah. It's a little bit witchcrafty.
Yeah. I could see where they could pick up the scent, but it's hard to say that if they're picking up the scent, but that's where they died. That's where I kind of have the issue with.
I watched a Netflix documentary about this.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
And they talk about how even a dog that is trained to be a cadaver dog, if they only hit 50% of the time on something that was truly the cadaver location, then they are considered a cadaver dog. But they could be wrong 50% of the time also. Yeah. And they aren't saying that that's potentially happening here. They bring a dog in and they go, oh yeah.
That's definitely it. Yeah.
That's right there.
Yeah.
He's barking.
And so I think the DNA is easiest to read if you flip the page too, because it'll show you where his name is and show you where it shows that he's excluded. But everything that they tested, there's not a single piece that says that he was there. Everything shows excluded.
Everything is excluded.
Everything is excluded, but there is an unknown male DNA found.
Yeah. So in this chart here that Leilani gave me, there's a very obvious row of red, which means excluded. And then there's a yellow column, which sort of says maybe, and maybe not. It's so obvious that you look at all of these, and then it gives you the names of the people they've tested. And Cedric's, column is just all red. It was completely excluded from every location that they tested.
Yes. So how are they saying that A, that's the murder site, and B, that he was there and did it if there's no evidence to back any of this up?
It's just based on proximity.
Yeah. And I will also give you, these are photos of the place that they said that they were supposedly killed. And I know that they're kind of weird photos. It's of the bathroom and outlying area. But they say that this is where the fight happened and this is where they likely were murdered. And again, looking at the autopsy, it sure looks like Michael fought back, but there's nothing out of place on the bathroom sink looks intact. There's stuff that's just very plainly placed.
There's a hairbrush that's like perfectly placed.
There's a better photo of that hairbrush on the sink. Nothing has been knocked over. Like
this countertop is cleaner than mine is.
it's cleaner than mine is right now.
Like it's organized. So when you look at this picture, there's this sink and then there's like what looks like a black comb next to the sink here. Yeah. And it's laid like perfectly parallel to it as if it was placed there meticulously. And then there's a hairbrush right next to it. And then you look at the toilet, which has those like wire racks that you can put above the toilet where they're really not very well made. And I had one in college and they were always wiggling and they were always like shit was falling off of them all the time. They're not a quality piece of material. They're great for storage, but you touch it and stuff is going to get rattled around. They have that above their toilet. Things are in like perfect little bins.
Yeah.
Haven't been disrupted. An MMA fight did not happen in this bathroom.
A fight at all didn't happen in the bathroom. Nothing happened in the bathroom.
There's a garbage can that's still just like sort of not in the middle of the room, but like in a spot that you would trip on it if there was a struggle. It's perfectly there.
Mm-hmm. And so they had said that they thought that they had brought the victims to Rebecca's house and again, the friend that he was staying at. And based on all this, like it just doesn't seem to be true. And there's also, so Michael's phone was on and his phone never reaches the city that Rebecca lived in. So, and they followed it. So there was a time that they went to an empty home, next to where Jenna's was. But there's no, like, this is like the tracker. And so when they track it, like Rebecca's in Colleen and the, phone never left, like, never went over from Temple to Colleen. It just went south. I know. It's all very weird. And I'm not giving Sam the whole case yet, so she just gets to hear the reasonable doubt first before she hears the whole case.
Yeah, there's like a lot of things that I'm like, how did they ever get convict this man?
But the reasonable doubt is what bothers me the most. So we're going out of order in this case.
And this is Michael's phone that I'm looking at here. Okay,
Yeah.
So this graph, this is interesting. I've always wanted to see these. They always talk about these in court cases that I watch and listen to, and sometimes they'll like make it pretty and like a nice, cute little like Google map, but I've always wanted to see like the actual report from it. And it just shows like his home. He's hanging out around his home and then does that one little weird empty house thing.
Yeah.
Which to me, who knows, that might mean nothing also.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, depending on how far away that is.
Yeah.
Cell phone data, I think, is actually really quite accurate, but I imagine that it can occasionally ping off of a different tower, which could make things look a little like an anomaly here or there, but then...
Yeah.
It just goes one way.
I know. So I just wanted to bring that to you, because I thought you'd appreciate it. And then the last thing I have right here is a photo of car, and it's going around Jenna's neighborhood just before the murder, and it's clearly a white woman. It's hard to see in the photo, but it's not a black man. But it's picked up by one of the neighbors. And there's a single person in the vehicle, so I don't know how they say that Cedric was there. Because again, what is happening?
So this picture that you're showing me right now, is this white car turning into a driveway?
Yeah.
Into their driveway?
No, it's one of the neighbors that picked it up. But it's right in that neighborhood.
Okay. Yeah, there's only one person in that car.
It's the report is after it. So those are kind of like the bigger pieces that I found so far that make me question how he was found guilty. I know there's so much more to the case, and we'll get into the whole case later, kind of both sides. But I really kind of wanted to bring the fact that there's so many pieces of evidence where he's either excluded or it's very unlikely that he could be there, and yet he was convicted of murder and sentenced to death on the reasonable doubt, and it bothers me.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to talk about, you and I have talked about a few cases where detectives or police officers don't necessarily seem to want to find the truth. They want to find the easiest out. And I feel like this case, the more you look into it, the more it feels like that's kind of how this one goes. And I will bring one piece of very specific evidence that I'll show you. We'll just talk about it. But he has, quite a few exes in his life. He wasn't just single his entire life.
Right.
So one of them is a woman named Janelle. And she's not like part of the case in the fact that they think that she was there. They think that she could have been part of it. She's not. She's just kind of a witness, like
a character witness.
Not just a character witness, but I think Maya talks to her for a while about what happened. And so then she becomes an actual witness. But in it, repeatedly, the detectives question her. I think she gets questioned, I don't know how many times. I know I saw at least 3 or 4 reports. So they bring her in many, many times, which feels a lot for somebody who's not part of the case. Like that feels a lot like badgering a witness to me. Maybe it was for a reason, but if you start to read the detective's notes and how they like dig into her, and at one point they ask if he was ever physically abusive because the whole premise is that he's this monster, he hits women, he does all this stuff. He's an MMA fighter and he's just vicious. And in it, she says no. And their response is, well, you're the only one. And that rubbed me so wrong. Like, I was like, are we leading the witness? Are we trying to convince her to say something else? The fact that you're pushing her about this one subject, and repeatedly she's saying, no abuse happened. No abuse happened. He says, well, you're the only one. When there's multiple other women that come forward and say, no, we were in a relationship or we got together and there was never any physical abuse.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were just saying a bit ago. Like, police, I think it's not necessarily, maybe it's that it's the easier option and they just need to get a name and they need to like put the case together and say, we solved that one and go grab a beer. Or I think there's a lot of it too that is like, just it's human nature too. My brain already needs answers. So my brain already created an answer to this. So now I need to find out how do I get to that answer.
The problem is that's not how detectives are supposed to work.
It's not. At all. It's not.
But time and time again, I feel like we've been looking, and I've done a lot of looking at like, that Netflix has the Innocence Project. And I always thought that was DNA only. And I know they lean heavily on DNA, but the series that just came out talks about like bite marks and
that's the one. I think that's the one that has maybe the dog.
Yeah. And how false that turns out to be.
Yes.
And how these people they just believe it and they can convince people because they're good at believing things. But when you go back and look at it, they don't actually have the degree or anything.
Right. They just are a so-called expert.
Yeah.
Because they decided they know how to do casts of the mouth.
But they go down a road and they decide that once they're guilty, they're finding the pieces that fit the puzzle, but they're excluding the pieces that don't fit.
Absolutely.
And pretending that they don't exist. And that's where I have the problem in this case, because it seems like there's so many pieces that don't fit this puzzle in the narrative of he had to have done it. And I'm like, okay, but then why? Like, why is there no DNA if he's hands-on? Why are there no marks on him? Why do you see pictures of just a woman go to this house? He's not there. There are also text messages that we'll get into later, but there's texts where, Cedric's texting Maya. They're clearly in two different places
Right.
when the murder's supposed to be happening, but he was the one who did it, but he's not
And
there.
and does cell phone data support that, like the locations on the phone?
I don't have all of the location data, but there's like all these texts where it's like, "Where are you?"
Because
And
that
she's like, "I'll be back soon."
Because that to me is like, if there is a location that they can, I'm sure that there's a reason why they couldn't
Yeah.
get the location at that time on Cedric's
Yeah.
phone for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the way it works.
Yeah. And I do know that some of this evidence was excluded from trial. That I don't know all of the pieces because he sent me everything, whether it was excluded or not from trial. I will also say that he did defend himself, which,
Oh, no.
okay, we have a story about that. But basically, his original attorney said that if DNA excluded him, they were going to file, for a dismissal based on that. And then the DNA came back and he was excluded and they didn't file the dismissal. And then, basically, that they weren't doing anything for him. And he, I'm sure, was at a loss of what to do and was like, well, you're fired, but based on whatever rules, like he couldn't get a new
He couldn't get
team. And so
right.
he's like, well, then I'm doing this, And he even says that was one of his dumber decisions. And he didn't think that he was smarter than anybody, but he thought that,
No one's going to fight harder for him than him.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they weren't fighting for him. And
Yeah.
clearly they weren't if they're telling him, we're going to file for dismissal because there's no DNA. And that the autopsy shows that
Oh.
Michael fought his attacker and there's no marks. And they still didn't go through with they didn't file anything for him.
That changes everything to
Mhm.
me, too. Like, he had no chance.
No, because he doesn't know the rules and he doesn't know how to fight for getting evidence admitted.
Mm-mm.
And
He had no chance. That poor man.
yeah. And so again, I mean, we'll go into the case in a couple weeks and I'll talk about the entire case. So you can kind of see both
Right.
sides.
I'm very one-sided right now, obviously, but
I know you are. But listen, this reminded me of Ivan Cantu, honestly.
yes.
When you first look at the case, you're like, yeah, I can see that he's guilty. But the more that you pick pieces apart, the more you're like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Nothing here makes sense. Can you make it make sense? I can't make these pieces fit to make sense where he's completely guilty. Now, he does say afterwards, Maya shows up in a vehicle and there are two bodies in there and he does help her bury them. He does admit to that.
Right.
He fully admits to that. He also says that at the time Maya is pregnant. So there is a moment where he's like, I did it because somebody needs to raise this child and they're already coming after me anyway. Might as well have been me. And so there's moments where he doesn't know what to do and he's just doing the wrong things. And you can see where it happens and you're like, would you stop? Stop.
So Maya, okay, so yeah, there's so much of this case that I need to know.
I know.
That's so,
Had you listened to my episode, you would already know.
oh, see, I didn't even know that you had that episode out already.
I have one episode and it is his version of what happened, but he runs down a timeline of everything that happened. Yes.
Okay, so Maya is out and innocent as of now?
No, she's in, I don't know how many years she got. I'd have to look that up. But part of it is I promised while I was looking up the case and the pieces and the evidence that I wouldn't look at all the news articles because, I mean, the moment you type in his name in, it's what he did. And so it's really hard to stay unbiased once you start reading the news version of events, right? And so I've been trying to stay like without bias.
Right.
But which is why when I look at this, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? How is he guilty? And I told you, he has a whole stack and I can bring it over. You can read it later. It's insane, the amount of stuff. But this is the biggest pieces where I'm like, if I was a jury member and I read no DNA I saw no marks on the body. You can't, like, there's nothing to confirm that he was there. The site that they said that everybody was killed looks the cleanest I've ever seen. Cool. How did he do it? How did he do that?
I know, but he was screwed because had to defend himself. And
Yeah.
the jury is going to be listening to professional lawyers who say, Cedric doesn't even care enough to get himself a team of lawyers.
Mhm.
He's up here defending himself, saying he didn't do it, thinking he's that brazen and can get away with it.
Yeah.
You guys are smarter than that. You all know that that's stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just he was so screwed. And it feels like a horrible continuous story that always happens, which is you don't have a justice like you don't have a team that's actually fighting for your justice. So you do believe there's no one who's going to do this better than me.
Mm-hmm.
But you're up against a system that has been just made to screw you.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're white or black.
Yeah.
Or whatever race you are, but especially if you're black.
I really feel like the fact that it was a black man who killed a white woman has a huge part to play in Texas.
100%.
Okay, Texas. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
100%. I don't need to know anything about the case. Like, I genuinely don't need to know a thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe that is the reality of like any murder trial unless there was actual video evidence of it.
Mm-hmm.
If like in Texas, that's such a normal trend of like, we need to get someone for this. She hung out with those guys.
Yeah.
That's the one that we need to get.
Yeah. And again, they do have a known history and a past. And there's also, we'll get into it when I do kind of the big whole episode. I'll bring in the rest of the pieces of evidence because otherwise we could sit here and talk all day about this. But there are also messages of Maya saying that, she needs to do something about Jenna, or she needs to help clear Cedric and to get this over with. And they're all very ominous looking back on what happened. But before it happened, there would be no like reason to think that she means murder.
Right.
But looking back and looking at these messages, you're like, oh, it definitely sounds like she's premeditating, but she's not talking to Cedric. She's talking to somebody else. And I have those texts and I will show you on the big episode where we put kind of everything together.
Yeah.
But I want to wait on that one because I have a couple people that want to talk about who Cedric is, and I would like to have that included in the episode so we can kind of round it out.
Also, this is everyone's reminder to go back and listen to the previous episode if you haven't yet.
Yeah. And it's the case in his words. So everything is from his point of view and how it all went down. So I'm sure, I always talk about there's three sides to any story, right? If it's a story about you and me, it's yours, mine, and the truth. So his is what he sees versus kind of what happened. Of course, there's going to be some differences. But do I think that he's an all-out liar? No. Do I think that he is 100% guilty? Absolutely not. If I was on that jury, I would not have been able to convict him if all of that evidence was included.
100%.
Yeah.
My mind is made up that the second he had to represent himself,
yeah,
he lost.
Mm-hmm. And he even says, it's a terrible idea to defend myself. And despite my paltry education, I'm not smart enough. So those are words from him. He definitely knew that he was up against the world, but at what point? He's not going to concede. You got to fight.
It also, sitting here and looking at just this small little stack of what you have here, he has stuff written all over this paper. He's highlighted things. He's circled things. He's pointed to things. Like, he didn't do a bad job, right? Like, he really did do the best you could do.
Yeah.
I don't think even a lawyer can represent themselves effectively.
Yeah. And if you read, I will, when I upload, I don't know if I'll upload all of this stuff, like the notes with it. I might crop some of it out. But there are a couple that say excluded. That means it was excluded from trial. He was not allowed to present that information. And some of it are the bigger things that should have been included.
Right. Do you have access to like the whole case file, like everything that was in court? I'm curious what that finger picture looks like from the ring camera.
I have it.
Okay.
I have it.
Yeah, I'm like just curious, like what evidence when we do the big show, bring that stuff too, because I'm curious what they have,
Yeah.
what they put in that they thought was strong and enough to convince
A jury.
you know.
And I will say also, once he got convicted, he did ask to be put to death. I said that in the very beginning, but part of that is he didn't think that he could do time. And they had, medical had told him that he had colon cancer, and then they've never done follow up.
What?
Yeah. So he thought that he had colon cancer. And so he's like, I'm going to die anyway. Just put me to death. It doesn't sound like he does.
They've never done a follow-up?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
See, that feels illegal to me. It feels, I know that
We could get into that all day long, because my guy in Michigan, he is in prison, and since he's been kiting medical and dental for 4 years. They never saw him. They kept pushing him back and said he's on the list until he finally moved to a different prison, and they got him in within a week. And these are all, like he has not to get off on a tangent, but he has known back problems. Like originally, like 10 years ago, they were going to do surgery on his spine. And then he gets to prison. They're like, your back's fine. And he's like, oh, weird.
Yeah.
Because this specialist said that I needed surgery. And now you're saying it's fine. Like, that doesn't seem logical. But they didn't see him. They haven't seen him since he was there. And he's been in 3.5 years there.
That's just it.
So welcome to corrections. They'll see you when they want, I guess.
Feels illegal.
I can tell you, I did a lot of fighting when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a whole different episode for now. This is just the Cedric Marks Reasonable Doubt. Hopefully you're all still with us. And that's all I have for now.
Oh, definitely go check out some of the stuff that she posts, because it's really difficult to look at and not just get a pit in your stomach.
Yeah.
Those hands, his hands. Yeah. That's really, I think, says it all to me.
Yeah.
It's his fingernails. I think that's what stands out to me, is that it's not like he's like maybe was in a fight and realizes he needs to like clip his nails now, and like his nails are long enough that I know he's a man, he's not going to fight with his nails the way women do, but like I don't know, there's no scratches on these bodies. There's no there's lacerations and abrasions, but there's no like where you would think if you're strangling someone, your nails would dig into their neck potentially. Like, I just, his hands to me are like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's just no way. I just feel it.
The big part to me was the lack of big injuries. From an MMA fighting standpoint, that was the first thing that got me. So originally when I started talking with him, I said, like I told you, I look with a blind eye. I'm not going to look into his case via the media because they portray him as a monster, from what I understand. And the moment I saw both the hand and body photos, but also the autopsy report, and it shows 2 broken bones, and I was like, with an MMA fighter? That doesn't make any sense to me. Their bodies aren't conditioned to take the punches that he can.
Right.
And this should all be in rage, right? Why else would he have killed her? Like, this would be an angry thing. And I don't think that he would pull a punch if you're that mad that you killed somebody. Like, there should be a lot more damage to these victims.
To me, quite frankly, it feels more, although I know that Maya ends up coming with these bodies with her, so she's involved, but feels more like the man was targeted than Jenna was, just based on like the fact he's strangled and he's.
I think so. When you look at it that way, I could see where you're coming from, but she's tied up and she does get beaten and killed. I think they took out the bigger target first, and he's the bigger target. He's huge. You're not going to tie him up and kill her first, because he's more likely to get away, get out, from whatever you're doing, and then you have something bigger to deal with. Even from my standpoint, if I'm attacking two people, I guess, I would go for the bigger target
Right.
first. I want to neutralize that threat. And I don't know shit about like MMA fighting. I know about combatives, but I just know hit the bigger target first. You want to take that out, and then you go for the little target. So that's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
And
Which,
also,
again, with that, like, you have to assume then that Maya's with a male. It's got to be a male.
again, if you listen to my episode, you would know
Right.
Samantha.
See, I'm just as like all the other listeners out there. I need to just go back and listen again. I'm hearing this for the first time, just like them officially. Well, they've probably listened to it and they're like, "You idiot." But she's definitely with another male, because it then makes me go to think too. There's no way that Michael would be killed by a female the way he did.
She's tiny.
Yeah.
Maya is tiny.
There's no way that he's getting murdered by a female. But then also, that means that, like, Jenna had to be held down and held back and taped up and all that stuff. But, like, they would have had to take Michael out first. So there's just, I don't know, there's something
there's too many bodies for there not to have been a struggle somewhere.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with that too, because again, I showed you the pictures of the place that they were supposedly killed, and it's immaculate.
Right.
It's fucking immaculate. There's nothing there. So 2 people got murdered there. I would assume that, while one's getting murdered, the other's not just sitting there if they're not bound, which, I mean, Jenna does get bound at some point, but
you couldn't have bound her before Michael was
neutralized at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that, there's too much struggle that's happening.
Which is why the fact that that Cedric's body is no marks feels unlikely.
It's incredibly unlikely.
And I don't like those odds. So again,
they never took pictures
of Maya's
body.
Yeah, and they didn't arrest her right away. So I'd have to go back and see how long it was until after. But according to Cedric, she was covered in scratches and bruises.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying is, like,
and we can't know for sure.
A girl who is fighting for her life, she's going to scratch the shit out of anyone who's going to put hands on her. Like, it's just I mean, maybe if you were a trained fighter, you wouldn't be scratching someone, but anyone if I was getting attacked and I realized it was now my life on the line, I know my fingernails would be digging in.
Oh, yeah, I'd be going for them eyes, man.
Eyes, I would bite their neck. Like, I don't even care. Like, I would be dirty fighting as much as I possibly could.
Oh, it's your life, of course.
And, right, I'm not going to be like, oh, hold on. Let me close my fist.
Yeah.
So to me, it just, I cannot believe that they would not photograph her.
Again, this case is insane to me. And the fact that he is on death row. I mean, even if they convicted him of murder, the fact that they unanimously put him on death row speaks volumes to the personalities down there.
When did this happen again?
2019.
So, like, my brain goes to also, like, did they subpoena Maya? Maya? I always want to say Mia, but Maya's phone. Did they subpoena her phone? Like, I feel like in 2019. Oh, they did. But I mean, like, photos. 2019, not that long ago. Everyone was on Instagram, Snapchat, all that, all of that. Like, did she take a photo of herself at all in that time?
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably. Yeah. She probably did. And you might be able to go, wait, hold on, look at that. And circle into her neck and be like,
what the fuck is happening?
Why is that on her?
Yeah, that I don't know.
Like,
that'll be one of the things I'll look into before I present the big case.
Yeah.
But I really wanted this to come out because it's been weighing on my soul for a long time.
Yeah.
He and I talk quite frequently about things. And like I said, I ask questions. Like I talked to him and I was like, are you a southpaw? That was one of my first questions, I think, after getting his information. And he said, yes, I am. And I know why you're asking. And so he was like, he even said, you should go look at my fights. And I know why, because I look at his fights. And like I said, his left hand is only straight punches. And I only ever saw him like, I think there was one body shot and it was more because he was reaching, but they were all to the head. Everything he did is right handed, even though he's a technical southpaw. And so when you look at the injuries and you're like, knowing that, and so that's a case where, I mean, if I was a defense attorney, I'd have been like, look at these 10,000 fucking fights. He doesn't throw a single
Right.
punch and you think that he's going to suddenly do it here? Like
Right.
that, again, the likelihood of that is very small.
Also, it doesn't say what side her ribs were injured on either, which,
Yeah, not on the paper.
but also if he's gonna, as you've said, if he's gonna throw a punch at this little girl and hit her in her ribs,
He's going to break more
He's
than just two, I
gonna-
promise you.
destroy her.
Yeah.
There's gonna be spleen lacerations or liver lacerations. Like, he's gonna really puncture her lung. Like,
Mhm.
that rib isn't just gonna crack.
Yeah.
Like,
hmm
100%.
Yeah.
So
So that's where my problems are. So, yeah, that's where the case is so far that I've been looking at. And again, I promise I'll bring out the whole case, all the pieces. That's probably going to be at least a two-parter, though, because there is so much information from both sides. And
I'm excited about that
I
one.
will bring out like the actual, like what reports say and what the news says as well. And we'll put it all together into one between what he says versus what the media says, and I'll try and get more information on Maya, but I haven't really been looking into her yet because I've been focusing on Cedric. And like I said, once I saw this information, I was like, dear God, Sam, I need to talk to you about this
Yeah.
before I go crazy because it just bothers me that much.
Yeah, I think Maya's the missing, like, she is the piece, though. Like, I feel like if you went down her rabbit hole
That's going to be a lot.
of who she's close with, who her circle is, who her friends are, who the people, like, she was hanging out with at the time, like, that is where I'm going to think they've probably, like, viciously under-investigated.
Oh, I guarantee it because they were honed in on Cedric the entire time. They didn't look at anybody else. They didn't look at anybody else. They looked at him.
Right.
So I can't say that you do your due diligence if you hone in on one single person and that's it.
You do your due diligence to convince people that he's the person.
Apparently,
that's what you end up doing.
Yeah. They're like dogs with a bone, man.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't give it up for him. And I was like, all right, well.
I mean, it's like it's easy. It's
Yeah.
a slam dunk. Like, it really is. It's a black guy who's got this white ex-girlfriend who they have domestic disputes in their past. He's a known fighter. His current girlfriend who's pregnant is involved in this whole scenario. Like, it's so simple, like, to just say it was him.
Mm-hmm.
It was him. It's just so easy to do.
Yeah.
Then you find out that he's defending himself and it's like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah.
I don't, I can let my daughter walk in and do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, yeah.
All right. Well, to all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.